For the past several years, proponents of ESG investing have been trying to tell us that in order for companies to become successful moving forward, they also have to become activists. But after a summer of increasingly vocal consumer backlash, and more recently, in the light of the terror attacks in Israel, all these brands that were so eager to hop on their pulpit and preach about social and human rights are now suddenly falling silent. And it's really starting to make more workers and more consumers see a bit of hypocrisy at play. But true to form, true to the markets, there's a new counter movement that's starting to hit. We're going to break it down for you right now. Hey folks, Mark here with The Rational Workforce. Thanks so much for tuning in. Great to see you. So if you've watched any other content from this channel, you know that I have pushed back on several occasions against ESG and some of the, what I call paper tiger activism that's come along with it, right? These companies that do these performative acts of support, but when push really comes to shove, when there are actual tough stands to be taken, they're kind of quiet. I really believe that diversity is important. I really believe that you have to have a workforce and take stands that appeals to the entire community that you're trying to sell your product to. But in light of the recent attacks in Israel, it's definitely been revealing some hypocrisy in terms of how our companies are going to go and what their real commitment is to speaking out about human rights. But interestingly enough, there is a new movement that seems to be starting to take foot. There's a couple of investment firms and a couple of companies that are really starting to tap into this increasing consumer sentiment where people are questioning the importance and the significance of things like ESG in the wake of focusing on more traditional business metrics. So let's jump into it. Really interesting article hit today's Wall Street Journal. So Tucker Carlson, as you know, left Fox News or was fired from Fox News, has been increasingly creating content on the formerly known as Twitter X platform. And he's in the midst of starting a new media company. And there is this firm called 1789 Capital that is going to be taking an early stake in the business. And this article in today's journal breaks it down a little bit. So let's cover some of the bases here. 5 years ago, Omid Malik, who's the gentleman in that photo, was a self-described run-of-the-mill corporate Democrat with a seat on the Council on Foreign Relations, a summer house in the Hamptons, and stints at Bank of America and white shoe law firm Wheel Goschel, I'm probably butchering that name, under his belt. Then COVID happened. Chafing under government mandates he found illogical and corporate limits on speech that felt to him like censorship, he moved from Manhattan to Florida and began hanging out with Republican donors. He discovered a business opportunity in a so-called parallel economy of conservative-friendly companies. Now he is one of their financiers. Malik this year launched 1789 Capital, which aims to capitalize on the opportunities that it sees left open by the wokeness of more traditional sources of capital. Its first fund with a modest $150 million, and by investment terms that is modest, made its initial investment on Monday, leading a $15 million seed round with other private investors into Tucker Carlson and Neil Patel's new media company. So let's stop there for a second and talk about this. So there's a couple of things in this article that I don't necessarily like because it's breaking things down into party lines. It's deepening the left and right channels. It kind of leans into this whole concept of woke. And I get it. Like, those are all popular terms. It's part of the zeitgeist out there is to pit left versus right. But this is completely anecdotal. This is just kind of within my sphere of folks that I interact with. And there's a lot of folks who identify as both liberal and conservative, a lot more right down the middle, that are really starting to question whether all of the policy shifts and all of the vocal goodwill and intent that companies have been espousing for the past several years, is it actively moving the needle? Is it actively making a difference in the day-to-day lives of workers? And more importantly, is it actually making companies more resilient and creating a better society? I think the jury's out on a lot of those. I'll put a link up here somewhere at the top of the screen to a recent story I did where we shine a light on some primary research that my day job company, Kickmotor, commissioned to look into this issue a little bit more. But it does highlight that there is a growing consumer sentiment of organizations that simply want good products or good services and don't necessarily have to have all the other social pieces that align with it. Now, by virtue of their first investment being in Tucker Carlson, you know it's automatically going to invite criticisms of people who don't like Tucker. By virtue of the fact that he actually interviewed former President Trump, a lot of people hate him on that reason alone. But, I think it's important to keep an open mind and keep your eyes open as organizations like this start to rise, because there is definitely a demand in the marketplace for it. And if you're an employer, and again, you kind of go on these pulpits and you pick some social issues that you're going to shout from the rooftops about, but remain quiet about other issues, you are absolutely going to create ill will with a decent portion of your employee population. And whether you want to take that on or not as a business owner or as an employer, that's completely up to you. But it's just the reality of the marketplace right now. It's the reality of human nature, that if you're going to cater to a specific group, you're going to run the risk of alienating others. But let's take a look at a little bit more of what this article covers. And there's one piece in particular that I'd like to get into. And the investment in Carlson and Patel's venture is part of 1789's thesis of EIG investing, which is short for Entrepreneurship, Innovation, and Growth. It's meant as a response to the ESG, or Environment, Social, and Governance, ethical investing standards that have been championed by funds such as BlackRock as good business, but have sparked a backlash on the right. Now, again, this is breaking it down into a left-right issue. But when you think about what this fund, what the 1789 Capital Fund is espousing, entrepreneurship, innovation, and growth, is it really that revolutionary? Is it just kind of sound investing before all of the social pieces got into it? You want to back individuals and organizations and ideas that have the opportunity or have the potential of making changes in the market, of building a better mousetrap, of finding a better way to do things. And again, like, companies that don't go into this with a mindset of taking a holistic view of the market, taking a holistic view of the people they're trying to serve, are not going to be successful, right? So I can tell already, I can predict what some of the comments are going to be, that this is going to be viewed as an anti-DEI or an anti-diversity message, and it absolutely is not. Smart companies are going to employ diverse people with diverse views and diverse backgrounds. But I think what's been happening a lot recently is that they'll fly the banner of diversity, but diversity of thought, ideological diversity. You've heard me get on my own pulpit about neurodiversity. Those sorts of capital D diversity concepts tend to get lost and muddled and downplayed in the favor of a couple of very narrow definitions of what diversity means to the purveyors who are pushing it. I think funds like this are a call back to basics, right? Like the fundamentals of a business, the fundamentals of leadership, and is it meeting the needs of the market? And let's make investments based on that alone. So what do you think? Would love to hear what you have to say about it in the comments, so leave your notes below. Also, would love it if you haven't already. Ring the bell, click like, click subscribe, do all the things to help the channel keep growing. We've grown at a pretty brisk clip over the past 5 or 6 months since we started it. I really appreciate all of you tuning in. I really appreciate all of you checking it out and coming back. And whether you agree, disagree, or not, I'd love to hear what you think. So please leave your notes in the comments below, and we will catch you on the next one. Thanks for tuning in, folks. Take care. Bye-bye.